It's raining outside, so if you hear thunder, that's why. Hello everyone, my name is Alyssa and welcome back to my channel. Today I am doing my June wrap-up. I had a really good reading month, which is like weird for me. I ended up reading 5 books this month, which is a lot for me. Typically I consider myself a slow reader, but I guess not so much anymore. Maybe I'm just getting faster. Maybe I just read a bunch of really good books. Maybe it's Maybelline. Whatever it is, I read 5 books and I'm still in shock. So let's get into it, shall we? So the first book that I read this month, and it was kind of the most disappointing book I read this month. There's no kind of to this. And that is Falling Kingdoms by Morgan Rhodes. I hated this. This book takes place in a world whose name I can't pronounce, and there's 3 warring kingdoms, separate kingdoms. They're not totally at war in the beginning, and each character is from one of those kingdoms. We have Cleo, the princess, who witnessed something very tragic, unfortunately. We have Magnus, who is a prince, who's really awkward and makes you uncomfortable. And I won't say why, but it's weird. And we have Jonas, which is really weird to say because that's my dad's name. Still can't get over that. He's a peasant who had something really terrible happen to him and his family, so now he's on a warpath for revenge, and that's literally it. This book had so much potential. The first 50 to 100 pages were actually pretty good as we got to know the characters, we got to learn about the world, a little bit of the history, and then it just went downhill real fast. Every single character in this book made stupid decisions. No one made educated decisions or plans. They just kind of flew by the seat of their pants and nothing worked out. It was incredibly frustrating. I read this with my friend Becky and we were both fuming by the end of this book. It was so ridiculous. I have to give some grace though. The characters are 16-ish, you know, 15, 16, 18, somewhere in there years old. Yes, you make poor decisions, but teenagers are smart. Cleo particularly was the worst character I've read in a very long time. She was constantly making poor decisions and then was also constantly talking about how great she was and how, you know, powerful she was. I'm like, girl, you have nothing to back that up with. She kept making so many terrible decisions that she didn't need to make, but she chose to make anyway. And it's kind of funny because a lot of the choices she made early on didn't actually come back later. It was literally just a plot device to move it forward, and then like at the end of the book the author was like, oh yeah, that thing, and then added it on. It was just a train wreck of a character, of a plot line, everything. Magnus was probably the only interesting character aside from all his uncomfortable cringeworthiness, but he too was kind of pathetic and kept doing stupid things all the time. And then Jonas was like barely in this book, and whenever he was, I was just like, what is your goal? What is your purpose? All you do is stand around and complain. I didn't like this. The magic system was really all over the place. There wasn't really any magic, to be fair, but when there was, it was all over the place. There's also the aspect of witches in this book, which it's on the back of the book, so you think it'd be more important, which it kind of is, kind of isn't. There's one point in the book where a witch is mentioned once, and is mentioned as dead. And it was kind of like, what? That's it? It seemed like a pretty big thing to mention once and brush over. I don't know if it comes in the second book, but needless to say, I will not be reading the rest of these. I hated this so much. I gave this a 1 star. Maybe if I'm feeling generous, 1.5 for that first 50 or so pages. But this book was absolutely a dumpster fire and a half. What's funny though is that I read this really quickly. This is like a 450-page book, and I got through this in about a week and a half. The writing is really fast-paced and really easy to read, and the plot, as fast-paced as it felt, nothing happened. Like, nothing seemed to happen, and when things did happen, it made no sense. So I guess that's the best way I can describe this. Unfortunately, I did not like this book, and I will not be continuing on with the series, which is really depressing because I wanted to like this. Everyone seems to like this, but apparently me and my friend are in the minority. Okay, so the next few books that I have here are for the Make Your Myth Taker readathon, and I participated. I obviously didn't get my TBR video out in time because computer problems. But these next few books are all for that. I started on the Jester path and I turned Oracle. And believe it or not, I finished today when I am filming this. You'll see why. I ended up switching a book at the end because I was like, there's no way I will finish this readathon with this book, so I switched it last minute because it was pretty easy prompt, which, again, you shall see. So for the first prompt in the Jester path was to read a fun middle grade. So I chose Seraphina and the Black Cloak. This is one that I've had for a while, and I've always been looking for a great opportunity to read it, and it's short, and this was it. This is a story about a girl named Seraphina who lives in the basement of the Biltmore Estates, which is kind of funny because my parents honeymooned there. So it's like it's a small world after all. She is the unofficial rat catcher in the basement. One night stumbles across a man in a black cloak and with a young girl, and the young girl disappears. So then she befriends Braden, a boy about her age, and together they have to figure out the mystery of the disappearances as well as the mystery of who Seraphina is. And that's basically the plot. This book was whimsical, it was really cute. Obviously it's not the best thing I've ever read, but it was a fast-paced book, and it was very entertaining. I laughed out loud at some moments. I thought the humor in this book was really funny. That's a stupid sentence. The ending was a little odd to me. Again, there's more books in the series, so I'm sure it'll be explained, but it almost felt too nicely wrapped up. And again, this is middle grade, so it kind of has to. But I liked the writing a lot. I loved how you got the sense of that Seraphina was not at the same education level as the people who lived in the Biltmore, so she kind of had an accent that you could read and hear in your head. I also really liked her dad. I thought he was a great character. He was kind of super chill and kind of just let her do whatever she wanted, but he was there when it mattered, and I thought he was a really great character as well. As well as Braden. He was so fun and so entertaining to read about as well. So yeah, that's really all I have to say about this book. It was just really fun and really cute, and if you want a quick read, this is it. I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars because I really did enjoy this. I don't really have much to say because I just really liked it. It was really good, and I recommend it. It was cute. The next book I read is also a disappointment, and I'm kind of upset about it because I really wanted to love this one, and that is The Thief by Megan Whalen Turner. I listened to this on audiobook, and I could not tell you what happened. To be 100% honest, there was like no plot, and I was bored pretty much the entire time. This is the story about Jen, who is a thief. He's recently been imprisoned, and he claims he can steal anything. Hello, Thunder. But because he brags so much about his talents, he is taken out of the prison to steal an impossibly hard to steal object, because apparently he can steal anything. Like I said, I was bored the whole time. I tried reading this once physically and I did not get that far because I was bored. And I was like, well, maybe it's just me. Maybe I need to listen to the audiobook. And I will say that the audiobook has a great narrator because he also narrates the Strange the Dreamer audiobooks, so I do like his voice. However, this book was so boring. The best thing I can tell you is that there was traveling, camping, and storytelling. That's most of this book. I say for the first 2/3 of this book is traveling. The last little bit is, you know, the action sequences, which again, I just didn't care. It was too dull. I think it would have been better if it wasn't written from Jen's point of view. I think that that's kind of where it lost me, because Jen is kind of just a dull character. And so there's a little action at the end, and then it goes back to more traveling and more camping. It was like the longest version of the beginning of Lord of the Rings. I've only seen the movies of those, and that's saying a lot. It's just one long travel novel, and basically they're just walking, playing with swords, camping, telling stories that I just kind of zoned out. I know I could have picked something else for the prompt, and I should have, but by that point, I was already quite a bit ways through, and I didn't really want to pick something else because it would put me behind. So I powered through it, and it's kind of funny because I completely missed the ending of this book, like the big reveal. I was zoned out, and I was like, wait, what happened? So I had to Google it because I could not. I was like, I am not going back. I'm just gonna look it up, and I wasn't that impressed. So yeah, I also gave this like a 1.5 star, maybe 2, because I liked the narrator. The names were super cool in this book though. The names in this book were some of the most unique names I've ever read, and that's saying a lot because I've read a lot of fantasy and I love unique names. And the thief was for the prompt of read a book with gold, red, or purple on the cover. This has gold, you can't tell, it's in the lettering. Okay, so then I went to the prompt where you could switch to being an oracle, and that was read a book about books, and I read Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Randerson. This is a shiny cover. This book is about Elizabeth Scribner, who lives and works in a library full of demon books, and these books have different personalities, they are spells, they sometimes contain people, but the libraries are essentially a prison for demon books, and she works there until unfortunately some really terrible stuff happens and she gets mixed up with a sorcerer named Nathaniel. And librarians are completely like, don't mess with sorcerers, don't even talk to him, just stay away. And her story kind of just goes off from there. This was so good. I really liked this. It was kind of nice that it was a standalone, so I don't have to like commit to anything now, but there are a couple things that I didn't like because it was a standalone, but I'll get to that in a minute. I loved the banter between Elizabeth and Nathaniel and Silas. It was all just so funny and really well done and perfectly timed. Sometimes I find that humor in books can be poorly timed, especially in like the end of the book where all the action's happening. And I'm just like, why? I really liked Elizabeth. I loved that she was a strong and powerful person, but she wasn't full of herself for it, which is one of my biggest pet peeves in YA, is when the main character is just so darn cocky for literally no reason. Elizabeth takes everything with humility and gentleness, and you know, she knows that she messes up, but she admits to that. And I thought that that was just a really great aspect to her character. And she did not annoy me, so that was good. Sometimes I get annoyed with main characters quite often, so I really liked her. She was a great main character. I would love to be her friend. She is fantastic. Also, the fact that she can use a sword so well without knowing how to use one is amazing. That would not be me. Another thing that I really loved about this book was just the way that Margaret Randerson describes the books in this world. They all have their own personality. Every book had their own thing going for them. There were some that were really sassy, some that spit ink at people, one that took people's faces, you know, things like that. That was really cool. And I thought that was so unique. I've never read anything quite like that. The mystery of this book also kind of had me guessing a lot. I kind of am good at figuring out endings sometimes, but this one had me questioning a little bit about what was going to happen. My theory did not happen, but what did happen was pretty darn good. And yeah, it was just such a good book. I will say though that because this is a standalone, I feel like some things weren't quite fleshed out very well. Some of the magic in this book, specifically with Elizabeth, I feel did not get very fleshed out. I feel like it wasn't described very well, or maybe it was and I'm missing something, but I do feel like whatever Elizabeth was going through wasn't very explained very well. I guess that's a long way of saying that. But I loved the magic system in general aside from that. I thought it was really unique and really interesting, and it was really cool. Another thing that I think that the problem with this being a standalone is that it moved so quickly. Like, the plot moved okay, but our characters would be in one place for a chapter or two and then suddenly be in another place, and it would just happen all the time. And sometimes I had a hard time remembering where they were because they moved around so quickly. All in all, I really, really liked this. I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. It was just so good, and it was just so entertaining. It was really good. I definitely would recommend this if you're in the mood for something quick, easy, and non-committal. And the last book I read for the Make Your Myth Taker, which I literally finished about an hour ago, and it's the one I switched, which was the 5-star prediction, and that was on the Oracle Path, and that was Witchy by Ariel Slamet Riaz. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. I'm going to pronounce a lot of names in this wrong. I'm so sorry. So this is a graphic novel. It's got beautiful artwork. I'd show you, but I don't want to spoil anything. And this is just volume 1. This came in the May Owl Crate, which was super cool. They sent 2 books that month. So I thought I would give this a whirl and read it. And the nice thing about having the prompt being 5-star prediction is it could be literally anything, because I always have high hopes for everything I read. So this is about a girl, and I'm going to pronounce this name wrong. I don't know how it's pronounced, so I've been pronouncing it Niamh, and I'm pretty sure that's not right at all. Because it's not spelled like that at all. She lives in a world where witches go to school and then they are conscripted into an army, and based on how long your hair is how strong your magic is. And our main character has very long hair, but she hides it because if your hair is too long, then you will probably get burned, because they are too afraid of you, and your hair is too long, it's gotta go, you dead. So our main character is about to get conscripted, but she is too afraid and she doesn't want to. So she does something extremely drastic, I will say, that is not good. And her story kind of just goes off from there. I thought the world of this was really interesting. I loved the idea of the hair being the source of your magic. I loved that. I thought that was really creative and really interesting. Niamh was okay. Again, this is a first volume. I have a hard time like rating graphic novels just because you don't get the whole story in just one volume. But I did like Niamh. I thought she was an interesting character. Her mom was the coolest though. I'm all about cool moms in books because I'm a mom and I want to be cool like her mom and kick people in the stomach. And her mom was so cool, and I just hope her mom's gonna be okay. And I also really liked the old lady in this book. But again, there wasn't much plot in this. It's really just kind of starting off and taking off. So I feel like I can't really rate it based on the plot alone, but the characters were really interesting. The world was really interesting, and I am a little curious to see where this would go. I don't know if I will purchase the rest, or I know this is a webcomic series, I'm pretty sure, so you can go online and check it out. But I was thinking of maybe doing that. I don't know. But I enjoyed it, and I love the artwork in it. All of it's just so colorful, and it's just so pretty. Like, it's just so pretty. That one doesn't have any spoilers, it's fine. I enjoyed this. I gave this like a 3 out of 5 stars. Again, it's hard for me to rate graphic novels just because there's not much going in the first novel. You kind of just establish characters, world, and then the plot starts going. So, yeah, I read Witchy. And that means I completed the Myth Taker. Woohoo! Yay! Thank you, Thunder, for agreeing. And there was a couple books that I started and I did not finish, so I'm just gonna briefly go over those. So my friend Becky and I, after the dumpster fire that was Falling Kingdoms, we needed another book to read together. And this is her favorite book, like, ever. So I thought I would give it a whirl and we're gonna read it together. And that is A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. No, I have not read this. Yes, I'm very behind. I know. It's about Kel, who can travel between different versions of London. He has a magical coat, and he unfortunately gets something he should not get. And then that thing gets stolen by another character named Lila. I'm not very far into this. I'm really liking it though. It's really entertaining. There's one character in particular who I hate, but I also feel bad for in a weird way. But I love Kel. I like Lila. So far, so good. Cannot wait to finish this, hopefully in July. And then lastly, I am still reading Words of Radiance by Brandon Sanderson. I started this a couple months, like it feels like a couple months ago. I don't remember when I started this. I kind of took a break from it all of June to kind of focus on the Myth Taker, but you bet your bottom dollar this is the one I am going to be focusing on next month because I want to get a little bit further through this monstrosity. So there you have it. That is all the things that I read in the month of June. I am pretty darn proud of myself. Again, I've never been a fast reader, so this is like shocking to me. But I hope you guys enjoyed. I will leave links down below to all the books that I read, and you can go check them out yourself. And yeah, I will see you guys very, very soon in the next video. Bye-bye!